Prabhupada came immediately and he said, "Get the cornerstone now. We will sign the deed. As soon as the deed is signed, we will have the cornerstone laying ceremony. We'll put an Antashesha under the ground, and then the land belongs to Krishna and Radharani." So he came. He was only coming for a day or 2 days. And they were signing the deed at the Radha Damodar temple. And Shamsundar Prabhu was Prabhupada's secretary. He had a Royal electric typewriter. And Prabhupada was dictating the deed to him, and he was going... That's the way typewriters used to sound. And right when they were in the middle of the deed, all the power went out. And in those days, you don't know when the power was going to go back on in Vrindavan. Could be out for the rest of the day. So how do you write a deed? Because electric typewriters don't work without electricity. So Srila Prabhupada turned to Yamuna Devi. Because Yamuna Devi was a master at the art of calligraphy. That means very, very ornamented, beautiful, artistic handwriting. And oh, how she could actually, when Srila Prabhupada saw her writing in the early days in San Francisco and London, he would have bhakti sastra exams for the devotees. They were very simple in those days. And he would have Yamuna Devi personally handwrite the diploma, the certificate for each devotee. And she would put gold embossments. And so Prabhupada told her, "I'll dictate the letter, and then you should make it a beautiful, artistic calligraphy deed." And meanwhile, Srila Prabhupada wanted witnesses there. So he had many of his godbrothers, many of the prominent Goswamis of Vrindavan, many of the government officials for Vrindavan. They were all sitting in the room. And the typewriter ended. So Yamuna Devi had 20 minutes. And she wrote this deed according to how Srila Prabhupada dictated it. And she put gold on some of the letters and put nice stampings on it. It was beautiful. And she brought it in. And Srila Prabhupada held it up for everyone to see. No one has ever seen a legal deed like this. It was like the writings of the 6 Goswamis in English. People, Prabhupada was showing everyone. He said, "You see this nice daughter of mine, Yamuna Devi? You see how she makes her deeds?" And everyone was deeply, deeply inspired. And Srila Prabhupada signed, and everyone signed. So that original deed was artistically written by Yamuna Devi. And that is how the land was procured at Krishna Balaram Temple. And I was recently reading part of the manuscript of Yamuna Devi's biography. It began an autobiography, but she had a feeling that Srila Prabhupada would be calling her back to him. So she requested her very dear lifelong friend Dina Tatarni Devi to complete her memories if she physically departs before she does. Yamuna Devi explains it was 52 degrees Celsius. That means 125 degrees Fahrenheit. And she's from Oregon. which is quite a cold, windy place near the ocean on the west coast of the northern part of America. And there were 5 men, and she was the only lady. It was so hot. And every day, because April, May, it kept getting hotter and hotter. And the nights were as hot as the days. And on the roof, all the men were sleeping out under the sky, where at least there was some air and some breeze, little bit. But because she was a lady, she couldn't sleep on the roof with all of them, so she had to sleep in this tiny little room that hardly had a window, and there was no electricity, and no running water, and no fan. And compared to the 120 or the 52 degrees Celsius outside, it was hotter inside. It was like an oven. How to sleep? She said she would go downstairs and get water and soak a cloth with water, like one of her saris, and just put it on her whole body, just for some little sense of moisture. But within 10 minutes, it was bone dry. But she writes that even though it was so difficult, what to speak of everything else they had to do? They had to build a temple. They didn't have hardly any money. They didn't know how to do anything, but they had to build a temple. They had to survive with nothing. But then she would remember that for 6 years, Srila Prabhupada, he lived through the summers here at Radha Damodar Temple, in the same place. He didn't have anything more than I did. And if my Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, lived here, and he endured all these difficulties for all of us, I should be joyful. I should be grateful to endure these difficulties in my service to him. And her life became so meaningful and so joyful. The situation didn't change, but her consciousness changed. What was the change in consciousness? This is crucial for all of us to understand. She was grateful. And therefore, she was able to genuinely, from the core of her heart, appreciate what she was being given. This is the way we enter Vrindavan. Yamuna Devi was not here to enjoy. If she was here to enjoy, she would be suffering miserably. She was here to be enjoyed. She was here to serve. And how was she able to see that? How was she able to transform her consciousness? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us that the only way to understand Vrindavan, the only way to understand Krishna, the only way to understand bhakti, the only way to understand kirtan is mahajano, yena, gatah, panthah, which means to follow in the footsteps of the great souls. That's what she captured in her heart. Sitting at night, sleepless, in a burning oven, with hardly any air to breathe, knowing that it's just going to get hotter and hotter for the next few months. And having so many responsibilities and so much service to do that was so confusing sometimes as far as the physical execution. But she just remembered her Guru, Srila Prabhupada. He lived in this building. He lived in this place. He passed through the same summers serving his guru, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. How my Gurudev was so grateful to be right beside the samadhi of Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, right beside the Seva Kunj, the place of Sri Krishna and Sri Radha's Ras Leela. When she remembered the greatness of Prabhupada's example, when she remembered the opportunity she had to follow in his footsteps and to serve him, the heat didn't change. The circumstance didn't change, but her consciousness totally transformed. And what was painful became joyful. She actually entered into the true spirit of Vrindavan because she came in the mood of being the servant of the servant of the servant. There's a poem by a great saint of the Pushti Marg. He writes that when I'm walking through the forest of Vrindavan and a thorn pierces deeply into my bare foot. How many of you have had that experience? Say Hari Bol. Say it louder, please. This Vaishnava, this great devotee said, when that thorn pierces my foot, because it's a thorn of Vrindavan, I feel 10 million times more happiness than the experience of mukti, of being eternally liberated in the Brahman realization. 10 million times more happiness. So please, if you get pierced by thorns during the yatra, try to remember how fortunate you are. It's a matter of consciousness. If we actually appreciate the blessing we have of being in Vrindavan, appreciate who Vrindavan is, then our hearts are actually receptive to really receive the grace of Vrindavan.
You were listening to Radhanath Swami on devotionalnectar.com.